What up, guys? Welcome to the Jiu-Jitsu podcast episode, whatever crazy number we're on. Today we got a buddy of mine. He is he's like one of the guys I trained with when I first started. So we'll talk a little bit more about this in the podcast, but just to sort of set the stage for you guys that are here. When I first started back in 2003, there was a guy who people talked about who wasn't there at the time, was a blue belt named Amsterdam. And it was a guy named Daniel from Amsterdam. And, you know, I heard about him, and then eventually we ended up training together. And for a couple of years while he was training off and on in the States, he became like my main toughest training partner. We battled in the gym, you know, and we were constantly, you know, getting the better of one another. And he had a really big impact on me early on, because some of the things that like we were training, and we'll talk about this in a bit, like we were in an environment where, I mean, we were just trying to kill each other all the time. And he even would get frustrated by that, because he's like, man, like I remember one time he got frustrated one time with the coach, and he's like, Mike, I got to try stuff. Like, this is the lab. We got to do something different. Right. And so again, and then even back then, I remember his like, he was like a wealth of knowledge. The guy just knew so much stuff. I remember feeling like stupid, because like I don't know how to do any of this stuff. You know what I mean? Like, so if you guys ever feel like you don't like retain everything, that you feel kind of stupid, it's okay. You can still be very good at jiu-jitsu and still not remember everything and have it right there. But he had just a working knowledge of everything that was like really impressive. So anyway, we have him on the podcast and chat about kind of the old days when we were training, and then just wherever the conversation went. He had posted a picture on Instagram, and I was just like, dude, it would be so cool to talk again. I haven't talked to this guy in 20 years, but we've kept up in touch with each other loosely over, you know, social media, Facebook and things like that. But again, hopefully you guys enjoy the conversation, listen to me training with one of my old white belt and blue belt training partners, and get something from it. He has some cool ideas on training, and we'll jump into it. Big thanks to our sponsors. We have a new sponsor today that we're announcing. It's called Athletic. So it's ATHLETHC. So they're THC and CBD and other cannabinoid blends in the form of mints. And so, you know, their whole thing is to help people have sort of, to use these functional cannabinoid blends to fuel focus and recovery. And they do a lot of other things. You know, they gave me like their checkpoints or their like list of stuff that they wanted me to, or that they gave me that possible talking points. But as always, I use the products, you know, and so I one of the things that we have conditionally is that if we bring on a product, I have to use it. And then I also have to be free to say what I want to about it. I don't want to be like, and get your next product, whatever. So I've used them in. So they're actually really good. I like them. For any of you guys that have like a crazy edible story where things went the wrong way, which I think everybody who's ever had an edible has one of those, like someone gave me too much and then I'm like, woo, I'm like crazy and having like crippling anxiety. So there's none of that. It's like, I think it's 2 milligrams of THC. It's all derived from hemp. It's 100% legal federally, right? Yeah. So it's not like you're doing anything crazy. Also, too, it's not going to make you feel like a couch potato, because I'm one of those people, like, I always have like a little bit of a touch of anxiety or like energy always going, right? I'm a high energy person. And so I don't want to mess with anything that takes that away from me, because that's like, for me, it's like a superpower. It's like, how do you get so much done? It's like, because I've got this energy always buzzing in me, and I don't want anything to slow me down. I remember there was like when I was a kid, they gave me painkillers for like a knee injury. And I remember the knee didn't hurt that bad. And so I was like, I'm not using these, like, because I didn't like it. And even as an adult, I remember like when I got my nose broken, they tried to give me like a Vicodin. I was like, I don't want to take that, because I'm going to feel like a zombie. I'm going to feel like a zombie. I was like, I want to feel alive. I want to be getting after stuff. So that said, I do notice that it chills me out. And I actually, like, every now and then I like take them before training, because it just sort of relaxes it quiets because again, I do have a mind that races, and it quiets my brain, gives me a little bit more of a relaxation feeling. And I go into training, I still have the oomph that I need, but at the same time, my mind's pretty clear. And I've had some really cool, like, flow state training sessions, in part because of it. And it's been helpful sometimes with sleep, where again, you're just trying to get that elusive, relaxed feeling where your brain just gets quiet for a little bit during periods of time. I've used them for a little bit. I've used them for that purpose. Also gave them to my wife to try out, and she's trying them out now to see what she thinks, to see if it helps her out with her sleep, because she's like her brain's like worse than mine. But anyway, guys, I really like the products. They come in this really cool little box, and when you open it up, if you get the sample kit anyway, they have a couple different ones. They have a power, flow, and rebound blend. Rebound obviously being for recovery, the flow being for, whatever sport or training session you're getting ready to do, learning session, work, whatever it is. Power being for the blend is for actual training. If you guys want to check them out, you can go to their website, athletic.com, ATHLETHC.com. And if you go there, you use the promo code Chewjitsu10 for 10% off your order on the mints. Again, fan of the product. I like them. I don't have any sort of like hangover from it. No crazy side effects like from like an edible type of thing because the dosage is low, but I still get like a nice, relaxed, focused feeling. And I've enjoyed them. So check them out if you'd like. Also, big thanks to our buddies at Epic Roll. Epic Roll has been a longtime sponsor of our podcast. They make terrific gear. Speaking of which, they've recently made the new Chewjitsu rash guard sets that are out. If you guys want to check those out, just if you're following me in my emails, if you're going to Instagram, I'm posting about it because we're currently doing a pre-order at the time of recording this, and we will be doing one until April the 11th. 2025. And so we've got ranked colored rash guards. We also have a special black and white one that's legal in IBJJF. And we've got female cuts available. So if you're a lady and you want a rash guard, we got those too. And we've got big boy sizes, whatever you want. It's doing a pre-order so we can make sure we have the cut and the size that you need. So if you want to check that out, just go to my website, follow me on Instagram somewhere, you'll find it. But if you're ever like looking on their website and you just want to get some new gear, go to their website at epicrollbjj.com. The promo code is Chewjitsu20 for 20% off the order at checkout. Also, thanks to our sponsor, Charlotte's Web. So Charlotte's Web is one of the premier CBD companies that's out there. They also have a new line of other products that use functional mushrooms to support you in whatever you're doing. So everything from reishi mixed with ashwagandha to help with stress management, and things like lion's mane to help improve focus. And again, they have that along with all their other products, such as their CBD gummies and CBD tinctures and their CBN products, which can be helpful for sleep. If you guys want to check them out, go to their website at charlottesweb.com, and the promo code is Chewjitsu30 for 30% off the order at checkout. Also, guys, if you want to support the podcast directly, check us out at our Patreon, patreon.com/the Chewjitsu podcast. When you join up, you get a bunch of different exclusive benefits for becoming a Patreon supporter. You can check those perks out if you want to on the website. And we appreciate those of you who choose to do that each and every month. It helps out the podcast a lot. And thank you so much. Again, if you want to check it out, patreon.com/the Chewjitsu podcast. Also, guys, I know we're throwing this all out there, but if you guys want to get my daily email, and you'd like to get my ebook that goes into how to focus your open rolls, you can get it by going to my website at chewjitsu.net/join. When you join up at chewjitsu.net/join, you'll get the email sent to you daily, which again goes into everything that I think might be fun or interesting to you, kind of like the podcast. And then on top of that, you'll get an ebook and a video that comes along with it that goes into some ideas on how to improve focus for your training. I wrote the book for anybody who is, most people, 90% of people in jiu-jitsu who can't train every single day, and you want to get the most from your training sessions. And then in particular, this will teach you how to get the most from your rolling sessions. If you want to check it out, go to my website at chewjitsu.net/join. Also, guys, just worth bringing up, any of you guys that are broken, maybe you're older, broken, whatever, if you want to get someone to help fix you, to help give you guidance on what's broken, what's wrong, or what you could do to improve your mobility, or what muscles are tight, all that kind of stuff, check out my buddy Eugene. He's currently doing some one-on-one coaching, and I bring this up to you because he's been my physical therapist since I was 15 years now or so. And again, he's helped me through a lot of different issues, both coming back from surgeries and then also to addressing problems so they didn't get worse. And again, usually it's just assessment followed by here's your stuff to do. And again, if you want accountability in that sense, right? If you want someone who's like, hey, are you doing your stuff? Like, check in with me, whatever. And you need help with that kind of thing, check them out. Eugene, where can they find information at?
Yeah, you can go check me out on Instagram, Jiu-Jitsu Therapist, or even send me an email, jujitsutherapist@gmail.com. Also on my website, it's all the same stuff. But yeah, you can, just check it out. And usually I do it by starting with like a 15-minute call just to get a feel for what you've got going on and see if we're a right fit. And then we usually do like a monthly programming. So you get monthly programming where we check in pretty much I check in with people multiple times a week. So like it helps with accountability, but also we can modify and create a different plan or adjust your plan as we need to, just see how everything goes. So
yeah.
Yep.
So if you guys like, again, it's not cheap, but at the same time, if you guys want someone who knows what they're doing, again, I put my seal of approval on him. Like he's helped me out a ton over the years and helped out like probably half our gym, you know, like the other day, someone came up to me and said, "Hey, Chewy, like my shoulders is hurting." So that might go see Eugene. Don't talk to me. Like I could probably guess some stuff, but he'll be able to like, come here, hey man, do this, do this, do this. Yep. This is what's wrong with you. Here's the things you need to do to fix yourself. And again, if you get the coaching, you'll have someone that'll actually walk you through that and help you out and help you stay accountable. Because I think for most of us, we have a lot of times, even if we have the information, we know what to do. The next thing that we lacked is like having someone over top of us going, "Come on, chop chop,
check it in."
It's like, it's like even when we talk about parenthood in the podcast, right? Like a lot of times parents know what to do, and so they can help their kids do it.
Yeah.
But then on themselves, they sometimes don't do the same things because they don't have someone over top of them keeping them, keeping them honest about it.
Sure.
And I think for all of us in different aspects of our lives, we may be really good about keeping ourselves accountable here, but then other areas, maybe they don't come as naturally to us or whatever, it's harder. So useful stuff if you guys want to check it out. So anyway, guys, with that said, let's get into this podcast with Daniel. You posted that picture from like 2000, I think it was like 2005. I think that was when Conan was at the gym when he started with us. And I think it was 2005, and you posted that picture. I was like, "Oh, let's chat, let's catch up." And I was like, "Oh,
yeah, man,
we'll just make an excuse."
Awesome. But it's very awesome to see you all grown up and having a beard.
Well, yeah, the last time that we actually saw each other face to face was probably 2005, I think, wasn't
it? Maybe, yeah. I think 2005. I lived in the States for a while. I was going back and forth for like 5 years because I was dating an American woman, as you do, as a strapping European lad. You ended up dating an American woman, and that fell through. But I started training jiu-jitsu with you guys. Maybe you weren't there yet. I'm not quite
You came
sure.
before me, yeah.
It was in Louisville, Kentucky, and Powerhouse Gym. It was like a weightlifting gym with some I think some WWE wrestlers trained there too. I think Batista trained there
for a little bit. Like they had them. That was when the Ohio Valley Wrestling circuit was really big, and it was a feeder to the WWE. And so there was a lot of like WWE wrestlers that would come through there and work out.
Yeah, and there was some crazy kung fu guy that was teaching in the class before we went there. I think it was around 2000 because I remember I was there for the first time, and I wasn't allowed to go into bars because I was 20 at the time.
Oh wow!
But I think you joined, man. When did you join? How old were you?
So I joined in 2003, May of 2003, and I remember I started then. You were gone, but I had heard people talk about you. Because it was like, because there's this guy that would intermittently come in and train who was apparently pretty good, right? Back then we just called him Amsterdam.
Yeah.
And so
Amsterdam, nobody knew my name. Nobody knew my name. So apparently, my name's Daniel, but
I didn't know that it was Daniel until you sent me like an email or something, right? Like you sent me an email. I was like, "Oh, it's Daniel." Just like nobody knew my name was Chewy until Facebook, or knew my name was Nick until Facebook.
Right. Yeah, no, it was awesome. And the thing is, like, I think there were only a few jiu-jitsu gyms in Louisville at the time.
Yeah.
And Brazilian jiu-jitsu really wasn't a thing in the Netherlands where I was from. There was one place, Remco Pardoel, in Os, who was teaching. There were a handful of other people teaching, some Hickson affiliates, but very, very few people. And I wanted to give it a shot because I've been doing Japanese jiu-jitsu and judo and karate for a long time, since I was a kid. And I was a black belt in Japanese jiu-jitsu, which is kind of like a karate judo blend. That it has a competition element. It's like it would kind of look like sambo. You punch the guy, you throw the guy, but it was very rough. There wasn't really refined technique. And I was a black belt, and I was there. I went there for my first trial class, and nobody was there. And then Kyle Cannon, remember Kyle Cannon?
Oh yeah.
He lives in
Brazil
near
now.
yeah, Sao Paulo. But he was a purple belt, and I wore my black belt, and I went there for the first class, and he just taught me private. But I said, yeah, I only brought a black belt. Is that okay if I wear it? And he was like, yes, you can wear the black belt. And I was like, oh shit. And he triangled me like 10,000 times. And
Sounds about right.
yeah, and then like, okay, I have to learn this. I took my black belt off. I went to a store and got a white belt to put the white belt on because I didn't know, you know.
Yeah.
And I started training with Mike Yanez and Kyle Cannon and his brother. His name escapes me
Colin.
now. Colin. Yeah.
So I
Shout
ended up
out.
leaving Mike later on in 2007 and started
Right.
training with Kyle and Colin. They became my coaches afterwards.
Right.
Yeah.
But Chewy, just for the listeners, to give you an idea, because Chewy is like, he has a nice grandfatherly attitude now. It's like he has a beard. He's a charming guy, you know. He's like,
Grandfatherly.
Chewy's like always
I know where this is going.
giving advice and stuff. But this gentleman right here, he was a teenager, and yeah, I try not to die when I roll with you. But yeah, man, you had that relentless wrestling pressure, and I think the gym that we trained at was the only gym that actually invited wrestlers to come train.
Yeah.
Credit to Mike Yanez, because all the other jiu-jitsu gyms were kind of scared of wrestlers because they were too rough. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And Mike was like, "No, bring them in." So you were one of those strapping wrestler kids that would just come in. Like, how did you find jiu-jitsu?
Well, I was searching on the internet, right? And so back
Right.
then, again, and this is just getting out of the 1900s. So the internet wasn't what it is today, right?
There
Like
was no Facebook, ladies and gentlemen, or no MySpace.
Right. MySpace was well, when I first started, MySpace wasn't even around yet.
Friendster.
And Google, it wasn't the machine that it is now, where it like instantly puts up exactly what you're looking for. You
Right.
had to do some digging. And so I found some website it was like BJJ.org or something, and it had a different list of stuff. And so I contacted the gyms, and like you said, a lot of the gyms weren't really that competitive. And so I talked to, and some of them were pretty expensive even back then. And so I remember calling up a couple of the gyms. They were kind of expensive. Two, they didn't really talk about competitions. I send Mike a message on an email, and he gets back to me and sends me like this color-coded list of his competition wins, and was like, yes, we compete, come join, whatever. And it was cheaper than the other ones. And so
Right.
I was like, competition and it's cheaper, that's what I want. And then I started training in May of, like, when I was still in high school. I started training. I thought it was so cool. And I remember going back to you, I remember our very first roll, right? And again, I'm sure, because I'm sure people that roll with you, when they come across you at the camps and stuff that you do, or back home, whatever, you probably are incredibly helpful and inviting and very knowledgeable and smooth. So when him and I would go, it was like this battle, right? And it was just like a fight every time, and like we would both go after each other. And I remember like a couple memories come to mind. I remember one was our very first roll. I remember it because the day before, you would come in a morning class and rolled with my buddy Slater, Chris, who was like, he trained that morning. I didn't train. He's like, yeah, I rolled with Amsterdam. And I was like, the Amsterdam, this guy I haven't met before that everybody's talked about. I'm like, he's back. Okay, great. So then we rolled with each other. I think it was like another morning or whatever. And I remember like one of the little like tags on my vitamins and minerals gi came off when he was doing like a choke, and it was like his shin was across my face, and he's choking because I'm going like a crazy wrestler spaz, and so he's got to like literally like put me down to like choke me and hold me, and the little tag came off. And I remember it was like, it's like a little souvenir for myself, whatever.
Right.
But I mean, there were battles. I mean, like, because again, back then Mike sort of facilitated that, where he trained a lot of us, and we got really tough because, you're fighting in the gym. It wasn't just like a nice smooth roll. It was like you're trying to win round after round.
To give people some context, it's like it was pretty much everything went except punches.
Mm-hmm.
It was ferocious. It was like, no, it was just, I don't know. It's hard to put into words because now jiu-jitsu is like, it's being marketed as it's a family friendly art, and
Can be.
There's a lot of, and I mean, like, but then, is it the best way to train? I don't think so. I
No.
think we got hurt tremendously. Like I cannot extend my right arm. I can't fully extend it anymore. That's thanks to training like that,
Yeah.
getting arm barred and just slamming your
Fighting.
way out of stuff. Yeah, or like just going absolutely balls to the wall. But it was fun though.
Yeah. And it made you tough. But, I think even like, and again, it was just the norm back then. Like, we've had several of the old Carlson guys on, the guys that train in the original Carlson senior gym,
Sure.
and they just killed each other. I mean, it was a gym war every day. And, several of the guys that I've talked to, like Laboria, oh, yep, there you got the Carlson thing on, the logo.
Yeah.
We talked to Laborio. I remember talking to Laborio. I was like, man, if he could go back, he would train differently because he would be able to, wear his body out a little bit slower because, he said he probably, took a little bit of, took some years off his ability to train at a certain pace and maybe compete because of the way that he trained, because they trained so hard. And that was what was normal back then. I mean, this is still like at the time that you're talking about late 90s, early 2000s, no pain, no gain is kind of the motto, at least in America. And then I remember in like high school football, this is still a time where like you would get a concussion and, they'd be like, all right, you're running laps because you're not going hard enough. You're like, oh, whatever you say, coach, I don't remember anything. So it was just a different time period. It wasn't this more, I think, thoughtful approach where you sort of undulate between going really hard and then having days where it's lighter and more thoughtful, maybe situational stuff, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And we'd get people in there that would they would just have a wrestling mentality, and they basically were told, you can do whatever you want, just don't punch the other guy. And Mike would say, like, only chokeholds,
right?
No arm locks, because wrestlers won't tap, they won't recognize, and you'll injure people.
Which is a smart rule. I'll say to his credit, I still use that one today. If I get a brand new guy in who's maybe doing his first full roll, maybe he's training with us for a couple weeks, he's done some situational, now we're going to graduate him to full rolling. It's like we typically keep him in like, all right, unless he's trained a particular arm lock, like just chokes. If you guys choke him, just so that, there's no chance where he might accidentally like arch his back and pop his arm or something, right? Like everybody knows when they're choked.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and like I ended up, I got my blue belt. I got my blue belt from Mike, and then I moved back to the Netherlands because my relationship ended, and I started training with a Carlson Gracie black belt, Marcus Fleischer, and I think it was a 4th degree black belt at the time, and I think one of the highest ranking dudes, or at least one of the few Brazilians teaching in the Netherlands, and he also had a broken body. It had herniated discs, and he was all jacked up, but he was really technical as well. So. But that was kind of like I saw him struggle with his back and with his knee, and I'm thinking, I don't want that. I mean, I want to train really hard, but train really smart at the same time. So I started doing yoga and mobility work pretty early on. I think I've been doing yoga consistently for like 15 years now, and I think that has kept me safe. And I've also grown less of a ego. So I tap a lot quicker now. I just don't care. I really don't. I could give zero Fs about people tapping me out. As like, there's more to life than that,
Yeah.
But to see like the older generation Carlson guys that come into our gym often, because when they have layovers, whatever, they come in by and they teach class. All of them have broken bodies, from just years of abuse and challenge fights in gyms and whatnot. And I didn't want that. So I try to keep myself spry. I'm 45 now. But I'm still flexible and I can move. So that's, but yeah. And strength training as well. That's really important to do that for like general, just injury prevention, mostly not to get jacked, but just to maintain joint stability. Yeah.
What was your intention when you started training? I mean, you already had some martial arts background, but when I started Mike's gym as well, but it was in 2008. So Chewy was already gone. So I was there for a couple of years, and then I ended up training with Chewy. So
right.
When I got there in like 2008, it was still kind of that MMA mentality, especially at Mike's gym. It was more like an MMA gym. Like, you're there not really for purely jiu-jitsu, you're there to actually fight and I never ended up fighting. I wasn't.
Well, it kind of shifted. So like when Daniel and I were first starting, it was at like a strictly BJJ gym, and like we would have guys fight occasionally, and we would have people that would come in from MMA backgrounds to train with us, but we were BJJ guys. We competed in jiu-jitsu. That was the focus. And then it shifted in 2006, 2007, because that was when all of a sudden these MMA fights started popping up all over the place. And then it was like all of us were already doing competitions, and then we started fighting, and then it was like you had a little cadre of really tough little grapplers, and then it was like, let's just let them loose on this amateur scene and fighting, and then we all started fighting, and then the gym became more of a fighting gym than just a pure grappling gym.
Because I think more people were probably fought in when I was there. It was at least half and half,
100%,
because it wasn't a big gym at all. You know, it was a very small gym. But
No,
what was your intention when you started? Like, why did you just decide to start jiu-jitsu?
Sure. I was always like a lifelong martial artist. I started judo as a little kid. I did that for a couple of years, and then I started doing Japanese jiu-jitsu, and which is kind of like that hybrid style of judo and karate, point fighting, karate, and grappling. But I was always interested, and I heard about that there was this challenge fight going on with different styles competing, and that was the UFC. But I hadn't heard of it, and we didn't have pay-per-view in Holland at all, so we got VHS tapes. And but the first thing that I actually saw wasn't, I knew that it was jiu-jitsu and that jiu-jitsu beat the other guys, but I thought, I do jiu-jitsu, of course I'm going to beat him. I have the best style. But that was the Japanese style, the sport jiu-jitsu style, and it wasn't Gracie jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu. And I thought, okay, maybe that's different because they have different belts. They have only 4 belts, and like, okay, that's strange. We have a bunch of belts. So I was fascinated, and I tried to find instruction. I couldn't find anybody to teach me, and I found one tape of Renzo Gracie competing in the WCC, which was a strange format. It was a NHB competition in a cage, and he fought a Dutch judo guy, and I knew the guy. It was Ben Spijkers, and he was a well-known, ferocious judo competitor. And Renzo beat the crap out of him, stepped on his neck. It was just horrendous, just completely choked him out. I'm like, okay, so I guess Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is definitely legit. But I couldn't find anywhere to train. So when I met my American ex, I moved to Louisville, or I started visiting there. And I thought, well, maybe there's a gym in Louisville. And I just so happened to find a flyer somewhere. Someone handed me a flyer of a Carlson Gracie logo, because I think they were under Carlson Gracie at the time, with a bunch of names, Mike and Colin and Kyle, and a number and an address. And I just went there. But I wanted to learn, because I was just like, I thought this is probably like really efficient stuff. If they can compete with all these different styles and jiu-jitsu wins effortlessly. And I saw Renzo beat the crap out of Ben Spijkers, who was a national or maybe European judo champion, and just absolutely demolished him. I think there's something to this. And I was just always into grappling and wrestling and rolling around. But my style was very wild, but I had some athleticism. And so I picked up on Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu really quick. Another thing I did was I took notes, because I was only there a couple of months at a time. So I took a notebook to class, and I always took notes because I wanted to bring it home to me and train back home. And I got some people to train with, some friends in garages and stuff, and at some other kickboxing gyms. And I started training that way. But I wanted to learn because I thought this is just probably the most efficient stuff you can do when it comes to ground fighting. And I was, that was it. It was just, I was hooked, and it's just so much fun. You know, it's physical chess. It's problem solving under stress with dire consequences. It's just something I enjoy. So, yeah.
With your training now, because obviously, you know, you were mentioning it earlier that you've gotten older, you're in your mid 40s now. You know, for people getting into it, what are recommendations that you have for, say, older grapplers who are trying to train for longevity versus train for just, you know, competitive elements? Because I think, you know, if any of us that have stuck around for long enough, you know, and you start to read, like you said, read the writing on the wall with all the older guys, you kind of start to know, oh, I'm going to have to make this transition where you train for winning or whatever that is that you're after, versus training for longevity so that you can keep going for a long period of time. Yeah. So what are the things that you think would be useful for someone who's training for longevity in jiu-jitsu?
I think one thing is really something that's not really talked about as much, but it's about learning to say no to rolls.
Yeah.
When somebody asks you to roll, you can sometimes just say, look, no, man, you're way too strong, or you're way too aggressive for me, or you're going to crush me because I have to work tomorrow. And as a man, sometimes you have to check your ego, but it actually, it's smarter. It's like just like to say, look, no, I'm not comfortable doing that. And you know, that's not something that I would have said when I started training. It wasn't that wasn't condoned, that sort of thing. But I think you have to prioritize your own safety. If you see like a hyper aggressive purple belt competitor, and you're a recreational dad, if you're not comfortable, just don't learn to say no. Tap quick. And that's one thing. And you should also just try to make it as fun and experience as possible. So it should be like learning should be fun. I would only focus on stuff that would translate into all the, like, make your jiu-jitsu as broad as possible, not get caught up in all the intricacies of like the latest matrix inversion, Super Saiyan Hadouken guard. But make it as solid as basic as possible.
Sure.
And that you're able to translate and also play in different domains. So play gi, no gi. So maybe sometimes also try and see what happens when you open your, like with slaps, for instance, not to beat each other up, but just to see what would happen. Where are you open if you are in a fight? You know, to not leave your face completely open, to not leave your groin exposed. So. For me, I've tried to get my jiu-jitsu as broad as possible so I can play in all these different domains, and pick your training partners really wisely, because and make sure then you know, accept the fact that people think you're a coward. You know, you have work tomorrow. You have other priorities, and it's more if you have to take time off the mat because you got your neck cranked really bad by some wild testosterone-filled 17-year-old like Chewy was back in the day.
Hey, you were still young too. You were still young.
I was 20-something. I was 20-something. Yeah.
But I would have been a terrible training partner for anyone that wanted to go a little slower, because I didn't get it, you know. And I think part of that too, and tell me what you think about this. Like the old environment that we had, there's a lot of things that I owe to it because of, you know, the toughness and grittiness that it instilled. Right. I think it, you know, helped make me a good competitor. At the same time, one of the things that I don't think was ideal was that when we were training, it wasn't what I would consider training. Now, to me, I would consider it competing, because like every day we would step on the mats, we would be basically fighting to win, to beat each other. And we always do that in the gym, but there's still like, if you start to develop this sort of like you're talking about, this 0 F's about actually winning, it's like you can train for skill, you can train to improve, you can train to win, but at the same time, it's not like a gym war. And I remember like you and I, for instance, I remember I don't know why all this stuff just stands out to me, but I remember there was one day where I had armbarred you one night. I think it was the first time
it didn't happen. It never happened, Chewy.
It was the first time ever, right? So the first time because again, for me at the time, Amsterdam is like better than me. He's the white rabbit. So I'm chasing after him. And so I remember the very first time I armbarred him. If you want to know what happened, I remember it so clearly. I'm inside full guard. I'm trying to work my full guard. He looks away for a second. I go for the armbar. So it wasn't even a good clean armbar. As like I really got him, and like it was like I got him because he looked away for a second. The next morning we came in for our training session. I remember he was like, "Man, I couldn't sleep all night. It's like that damn armbar, whatever." And so in that situation, I think about sometimes that it's really hard to explore and play and even dial back your game sometimes if you're training in that kind of environment.
Yeah.
And so I think now, like what I try to do is like, and I'm sure maybe you have some thoughts on this as a black belt who's coached people and taught people, is I like to have environments where here's our general training room and training environment where we're playing, we're adapting, we're exploring, we're testing things out. It's the laboratory, right? And then over here, periodically, we might have a very an intense competition setting where we're like, maybe it's a mock tournament, maybe it's something else, but this is the more intense setting where we are now trying to win. And this is trying to mimic what you might have in a competition. And we have that space. And depending on who you are, where you're at, you may not want to be in this space. So you don't have to go there. So trying to give people options, because I think, if any of us are going to stick in it for the long term, even if you're a 17-year-old spaz like I was, and who's hopped up on like caffeine and whatever like supplements were out at the time, you want to be able to dial it back so that you can make your game better, but also too, so you can show some courtesy to the people that are a little bit older, because when you're in their seat, when you're a little bit older, you're going to want someone to say, hey, like, could you just take it easy on my neck today so I don't have to, quit training or whatever, So what are your thoughts on that as far as training, like, creating an environment that facilitates both like good learning, but also to, you can have that competitive element, but not too much.
Yeah. Oh, that's one beautiful way to do it. But yeah, then you'd have to schedule different classes, obviously, and
Right.
but if you have a big enough school, you can cater to those populations as you wish. But what I prefer to do is when I teach is that I want the people that come into my class when I teach to do as much jiu-jitsu as humanly possible within the hour and a half that I have them. So I let them do very specific combative drills with a winner, or the clear goal with winners and losers, but they are immediately doing technique, but they are fighting really hard, but they're only fighting in an area that I've designed for them to fight in.
Sure. So you control the variables.
You just have to break this grip. That's the game. And then you can go balls to the wall doing whatever, but as soon as you progress, no, stop, reset. And that's kind of like a part of the whole big deal now is with ecological training.
The CLA approach, which again people have used in some fashion with wrestling and jiu-jitsu for a long time.
Yeah, but we did similar things like that as well. Like you even back then at the Powerhouse gym, because we would have drills like you fight until you get your half guard smashed, reset, fight, reset, or you can only do. You can only finish by arm lock, and it wasn't as constrained as it should be, but it was already kind of like specific games where you can go really hard, almost competition level extremity, but you cannot progress from there. You only train that specific area, and then you combine it into a technique.
Sure.
And that is something that I prefer. I don't prefer to split classes. This is going to be a hardcore competition class, and this is going to be a technical class, because I don't teach that often. So when I teach, I want the people to do as much jiu-jitsu as humanly possible. I don't do jumping jacks. I don't barely do a warm-up. The technique is the warm-up. You are already in there. And I expect you to be a little bit loose, shake your body loose, and then go. And that is also a way to make it really enjoyable for everybody there. And also for the really advanced guys, they get put in positions where they will lose. I will put people really good, like purple belts, competition belts, with somebody on their back with the choke almost in, and they will lose. So it forces you, even the good guys, to be really sharp on the fence or to train the specific game, specific skill, and that makes it scalable, because you can put a really good guy in a position where he's most likely going to lose, and he will learn from that. It will be frustrating, but he'll
break the ego a little bit, break the ego up so they're not so like resistant towards losing, like, hey, this is part of it.
But the end of the story, at the end of all that training and all that, it's progressive training, little battles that you fight. I want you to do this, and you want to resist what I'm trying to do. At the end, everybody has already had a really good workout with a lot of jiu-jitsu, and then there is actual sparring. And the sparring, usually I let them start in the position that we just covered, and then you can do whatever you want, but we are going to start in half guard. And if you decide to stand up and wrestle jitsu your way through it, perfect. If you decide to go to your other guard, but the reference point is the technique we just did. And then the last 10 minutes is just free for all, do what you want. So then you basically remove constraints as you progress through the training, and that makes it scalable. And the hobbyist practitioner can go 95% through the class and fight with competition level purple belts. They might even tap the competition level purple belt, because he was designed to play a game where they were on the neck. He was already locked in with the triangle. So he has that success.
Right.
And he or she might bow out for the last 10 minutes where they go absolutely ape, or they decide to go to the other side of the room and keep on training as they were. So that makes it scalable, and that makes it really enjoyable for hobbyists and people who really want to sharpen their defense and do competition, because you're doing the same games. And that is one way I try to cater to that.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's a good idea. I like using a lot of different situational, like work, live work, and trying to mix it in. And so, when I was kind of like, so I'm just clear, when I was talking about creating different places, environments, it's not to say that like, if every gym has people that are training with the competitors that never compete a day in their life, and they're 100% responsible for helping the competitors get better, right? So you have those people there. It's just like, if I'm gonna, like, for instance, if I'm going to start picking people out and say, okay, you two, you start from the feet, like everybody's watching, you're now going against each other, we're doing ADCC rules, whatever. I'm not going to do that on my Wednesday class, which is like, hey, we have new people coming in, right? But I really like that idea of the really restricted rolling, where you control the variables. And like you said, anybody of any skill can roll with each other. And at the same time, like you said, if anybody has any resistances towards losing, putting them in a situation where the likelihood that you're going to get submitted or quote lose is really high, helps kind of break that spirit, so to speak, so that you can actually be a little bit more receptive to what's happening, opposed to trying to always win every single round.
Yeah, because I mean, eventually, I think that is also a way to kind of gauge whether somebody is training with right intentions, in the sense that they are a valuable training partner.
Yeah.
And you will always have the occasional douchebag that will float through and will still be in your gym, and you'd have to deal with it. But I think it does force even the good people, the people, or like the people that are competitive and win a lot of tournaments. It forces them to kind of like, okay, accept the fact that you're going to lose, but that's okay, And if you give you that, and that it filters out some of the more toxic behavior. I think if you're already at a starting point where everybody's already going to lose, because I've designed the game in such a way that you will probably lose.
Mm-hmm.
But you'll lose while you're going to resist. You can resist 100% intensity, and that is the intensity that sometimes with the more traditional Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu gyms, they lack that intensity. It becomes almost like training kata. You do this, you do that, and that is just the death of all martial arts. When you start to standardize techniques in like a sequence that you have to memorize, that's just absolute death. It's not alive, as they say. So that is one way to keep that furious energy that alive without people getting hurt.
Mm-hmm.
So if you have it's kind of a nice contrast of gym environment, right? Where you started training versus the environment that you have in your classes. As far as like cultivating that really good gym environment, and we like getting those bad apples or controlling them, that's one way. What are some other ways if there's somebody in your gym that you feel like is just not a good fit? How do you go about dealing with that?
Well, usually, but I'm not the one that is responsible for like the entire gym policy. But
Sure.
when it's my ship, people get 2 warnings, because the first if you get a new person in that doesn't know anything, you already know who they are. I'm watching them. They get 2 warnings, and the third one is like, yeah, you'll go, so you have to go someplace else. This is not the place for you. But it's just you always have your enforcers. You have a few guys that that can handle a spaz, and so the first couple of rows are with the enforcers, but the enforcers will just box them in if I get a strange vibe from them. But I think the cool thing is about our gym, and I think Jiu-Jitsu has matured a lot. And I think there are just a lot of really professional people training Jiu-Jitsu, people who have like college degrees, they're engineers, whatever. So these people also have people skills. So it's not just a ragtag bunch of misfits training together in a garage. These are just highly educated people from all levels of society, or like you can be a bricklayer but still be like a really solid dude.
Yeah.
And because it's just such a nice blend of everyday society, norms that aren't acceptable outside of the gym shouldn't be acceptable inside the gym. And
Yeah.
nowadays, people will call other toxic behavior, will call it out, and it's a good thing, because Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was very machismo, it was just pretty rough. It was a rough environment. And nowadays, it reflects more the people that are there, reflects more the general society. And I think people call each other out on asshole behavior, and I think that's a good thing. It doesn't necessarily even have to be the instructor that sets the standard. The standards enforces itself, because people are already, in tune.
Yeah, I agree. I think the leadership with the black belt, whomever it is, they sort of set the tone, and then after everybody is kind of in line with that tone, then it sort of self-regulates itself, right? And everybody kind of just birds of a feather at that point. You said a couple of things that I thought were interesting, things that like I think about. Some of it, like, I guess, could be considered slightly controversial, but I doubt that you do anything crazy. But your ideas of enforcers, right? So I've talked about the idea of enforcers on my YouTube channel and stuff before, in podcasts. What are your thoughts on enforcers? Like, how do you go about using them? What is their purpose? That kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, just to give you a general idea, an enforcer used to be the guy that would beat up people who were obnoxious.
Sure.
Who would just get the green light to break something. Those people used to be that was the role. Now the enforcer, what I would see, it's just somebody who is just so good but has control, and he or she can box somebody in. So the enforcer is not there to hurt. The enforcer is just to gift wrap you and hold somebody down if they are crossing the line. And people get warnings before that.
Right.
But the enforcer is just somebody who has the skill and the maturity to use the skill wisely.
Yeah.
So it's not a loose cannon. It's not a shark. It's not my pit bull that I sick on you.
Yeah.
It is the mature, sometimes older grappler who's been around, who's won a bunch of competitions, who's usually pretty strong. But there's women in our gym that can also be enforcers because they're just vicious, but that's a different story. But if you want to break the ego, you go roll with our little purple belt, and she will choke your head off your face. But usually the enforcer is somebody who is both the skill and the wisdom to use the skill wisely, and they can just shut somebody down. And not without hurting them, but just making them feel how stupid their behavior is. It's like they can say, like, look, you have to calm down. This is not. And usually that tone, if they are have some people skills, some social skills, people will pick up on that. And sometimes you get the occasional person who's on the spectrum, or who is just out of their minds, and they get told to kindly leave and not come back, but those are very few and far between. There's usually, when you have somebody who's just unassuming, accountant looking dude who will just completely shut your game down, that's enough.
Well, and I think that's so kind of going to the idea of using live training situations to teach, right? You're trying to give someone that intuitive feeling, right? Because we know with techniques, you can watch something, you could watch an instructional, you could watch a match, you could watch your coach demonstrate something, but until you've actually felt it used, like, successfully, and sort of how that works, you don't really know it. Like, you know that it exists, but you don't know it in the sense of actually having any use of it. And that same sort of feeling idea, right? That's where I sort of think of as an enforcer. If you have someone who, like you said, doesn't need to be kicked out, because there's those people where you get rid of them really quickly, but they don't need to be kicked out, and you'd like to keep them around, but they're exhibiting like certain behaviors, like maybe they're a little too rough sometimes, or whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Then you simply just give the enforcer, for me, and I sort of like thinking about it, is giving them, like you say, you gift wrap them, you put them in a really bad spot, you just let them feel a feeling, so to speak, right? So like, they're just like, oh, okay, like if you're trying to tell someone, hey, like, be easy on that person over there, that you're 250 pounds and that person's 110 pounds, be easy on them. and they're not, then you're like, well, like then you put them in a really bad position. You're like, well, this is what this feels like. You're 250 pounds. You've probably never experienced that kind of pressure before. Here's what that is. So maybe this helps you. But and then obviously you educate. But I thought that was as you were saying that, I was just thinking about that idea as the enforcer.
I usually, sometimes I do it too. Sometimes I roll with those people because I sometimes I want to see that kind of manic energy would be the kind of energy that you'd get in an altercation with a person who doesn't know how to fight, but who's going to lose his mind. If you get road rage or whatever, that same manic energy, sometimes it's nice to feel it because it will catch you off guard sometimes. So it's nice to feel that. But what I do is like, I get them in like a side control position or like a crushing position, and I just hold them. Yeah. But unless they and they go absolutely do nothing else, no submit, just hold them, and to make sure that like you are completely boxed in. I could do anything to you right now, but I'm not. But I'm just making you feel like it's like a baby, you know. So that is sometimes humiliating enough and educational. It's an educational thing, you know.
Well, right. Well, I mean, like I'm sure you had that experience. You started jiu-jitsu, and I mean, I had this experience. You go in and you get completely controlled effortlessly by this person. And, you know, people have two reactions to that. They either run away or they say, what is this? Let me learn this. You know, and so sometimes that's a great feeling where you get controlled to the point where this person feels like some wizard that's just holding you down, and the whatever lessons you have to deliver later on, they're very receptive to it because it's like the ground's been tilled and it's ready to be, the seeds are ready to be planted afterwards.
Yeah. And sometimes you'd have people say, well, it's because of the gi, because I can't. I say, okay, take the gi off then. We'll do the same thing. So that's like that's the extra thing that you can say. Well, it's because of the gi. I don't know how to deal with the grips. Okay, take it off then. We'll do in rash guard. You know, we'll do the same thing. But but I think that thing you said about like it's either like you go like, this is bullshit, I'm out the door, or this is awesome, I want to learn it. That is already a deciding point in your character if you're willing to learn. And if you're willing to learn, then you have an open mind and you are more receptive on what's going on. And usually the people that run out are the people that will badmouth jiu-jitsu or say it's all bullshit or it's marketing or whatever. So they have no hands-on experience because they're afraid of getting humbled.
What do you think about kind of when you started to now, like the evolution of jiu-jitsu? Is there anything that surprised you about the direction jiu-jitsu has gone, or did you expect it to be, you know, where people are making money, you know, competing and just it's becoming more mainstream?
This is coming from a guy who's like my main knowledge in jiu-jitsu was training with you guys, with Mike, and reading Grappling magazine. This was before YouTube. So like I would read and I would study techniques from books. I have a whole pile of books here with Renzo Gracie's books and John Danaher's books. And so there wasn't a lot of knowledge out there. Knowledge was a highly guarded secret. And you'd have to go through the motions to learn stuff from people. Now it's exploded, and thank God, because of the internet, there's so much good stuff out there. And then the problem is like there is literally so much out there that it's a complete overkill. So to learn jiu-jitsu now is probably the best time to learn it. However, to find to really know what is valuable and what is fluff, it's going to be a little bit difficult. But I really love that the no-gi. At one point, the no-gi went completely the other way with the EBI stuff, and people were doing stuff that you would never do in the traditional sense, or they would just pull mount, get the guy to mount on you so you can do a kipping escape into a leg lock. Right. That is just so, but that is poetry in the sense that because you completely destroy the positional hierarchy idea that jiu-jitsu started with, that you don't give bad positions. But it's so cool to see with the submission grappling that it's completely turned on its head. And so that's something that I would never thought I would never in my right mind would pull mount so I can get a leg lock and win. It's just bizarre. And I think it's also I think the healthiest aspect was if people keep on going back to MMA, it'll keep jiu-jitsu relatively honest. because sometimes you just have to cut the fluff and go back to just, face punch jujitsu in a sense, because it's just so much fun. And then you also see like a lot of stuff just is not applicable anymore. So I think it's coming. It's always like a spiral. You get like a new hype technique. It goes back out of style. Somebody rediscovers it, and it's continuously turning and progressing. So, but yeah, jujitsu. Nobody could make money from jujitsu. Nobody. All the instructors were broke. They had day jobs. They couldn't live. And you're an example of this now, Chewy. Like this is your profession. That's awesome. We never thought that would happen.
No.
Really, absolutely not. Zero. I think if I would have stayed in the States, though, if with a turn of fate, I probably would have maybe opened the gym with you. I was thinking about that. It was because we got along,
Yeah.
I might have fallen out with some people here and there, but but now it's just unthinkable to think of like the scumbags that we were. Friendly scumbags. But now
I wouldn't say I was a scumbag. I was just a really aggressive, insecure young guy. And I think, sometimes people come into, because I was like a very clean cut, very nice young guy who basically kept his nose clean and lived the straight and narrow path. Right. But the other side was that when I was in the gym training, I was basically fueled by like trauma in my past. So anytime someone locked up with me, it was like my body was like fight or flight, was going nuts, giving off that manic energy. And then I was so scared to lose at anything, because whatever fragile little ego I had came from wrestling and grappling, where it was like, I'm finally good at something in my life, so I'm clinging to this thing. And if I lose, then I'm not good anymore. And that was really tough. And it took me a while to break of that. But I wouldn't say I was a scumbag, just a shithead. Shithead, but maybe not a scumbag.
It's not, English is not my first language, so maybe kind of a dick, a little bit.
I rolled like one. I was nice afterwards, but I rolled like a dick. 100%.
Yeah. No, but it's just so fun to see all these different. It's become a really professional thing, and sometimes I feel like I was maybe a little bit ahead of the curve, in a sense that there weren't that many people doing jiu-jitsu in Holland, but I never really pursued it as a professional avenue, I guess. And sometimes I think, maybe I can see if I can do it a little bit more, because I just do it recreationally, But I've been, it was really fun. Like I've been going to Globetrotters, BJJ Globetrotters camps and teaching there. I do one or two camps a year.
Yeah,
I've been doing that all the time, and that's been really fun. And actually, I'm going to I'm going to Pennsylvania to teach a seminar at my friends at the Inverted Gear Academy in Allentown for a week. I'm going to teach a seminar there, and I'm also going to go to New Haven, Connecticut, to teach at Soulcraft BJJ with my friend Brad Wolfson, all these people I know from Globetrotters camp. So I'm going to go back to the States after 2005. I left in 2005. I'm going to go back. So
is that your first time back in the States?
Yeah, it's going to be mental.
Oh wow, I didn't realize it was for some reason I figured you'd been back at some point.
No.
First time back in 20 years. Wow.
A lot has changed in that country, I hear.
Yeah. Yes and no, man. It's like, I don't know, dude. It's like from the outside, obviously, when you look at the outside, for like, I'm sure from the news, and even for us on the inside, you watch the news and it seems like it's whatever. But then like at least my day-to-day experience, when I go to stores, when I go like, everybody's all right. People are nice, courteous, whatever. When I go to the gym, like nobody cares. Like we're training, but like even like when I'm out in public, rarely do I see anything that would make me think anything differently than it was like 20 years ago. The only difference is that everybody's like necks are craning down at their phones when they're in public. But other than that, I mean, it's weird. I feel like so much of the media is basically pushing some idea on people, and then you have a loud sort of minority on both sides of this political aisle that we have in our country. And then everybody sees this so much and they begin to think it's true, even though if you go outside in real life for just a few minutes, it's like it sort of clears away that idea, because you
Sure.
know, most Americans aren't crazy fanatics, and we're
No.
generally nice people.
People just want to live their lives, man. It's just
That's it.
it becomes it becomes just a strange. It's kind of like yeah. I met that, like, when I lived in the States too. I thought people were extremely friendly, extremely courteous. But you know, and even back then there was a lot of not there was Bush was president and people were all angry about that stuff, but people were cool, man.
Yeah.
So like I'm totally looking forward to coming back. And that's the one thing that I can say also about jiu-jitsu, which is really cool, is that you get all walks of life on the mat. You get the bricklayer, you get the systems engineer, you get the trans rights activists, all training together. You leave politics outside because there's enough of that. We are here to get better at jiu-jitsu, have a beer afterwards, maybe not, but just hang out, and it's just meritocracy in its best form, because just not necessarily how good you are, but if you're a good training partner. Nobody cares if you're super good and if you're a dick. Nobody wants to roll with you. But if you're a valued training partner, you know, that dude is really not that good at jiu-jitsu, but he's there all the time, and he's fun, and he's joking, and he livens up the place, and he trains as best as he or she can. That is awesome. And you have a gym filled with that salt of the earth people. That is what, you know, that's why jiu-jitsu is so cool, and people need to do more of it. That same vibe is just, sometimes it's lost in the general discourse. And if you watch the news, people are at each other's throats all the time. No, they're not. They're at each other's throats on the mat, trying to choke each other.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
and they're not talking about politics. People don't give a shit. People just want to live their lives and be able to just support their families, have fun with their kids, and roll around like a bunch of savages. That's fun, you know. And I've had the same experience also. I picked up a new hobby, rock climbing, bouldering and rock climbing. I thought might as well just try something completely different. And I call it vertical jiu-jitsu because it's almost jiu-jitsu. It's like problem solving, but it's vertical. You have to go up. It's a boulder problem. And the same vibe that I got and jiu-jitsu gyms, it's almost the exact same vibe I get at the bouldering gym and the climbing wall. They're all people from all walks of life, and they're just there to get good at climbing and getting really jacked and really strong. And so that's a nice environment to be in, you know. And I think in modern society, there aren't that many places where you can be physical with people without repercussions, you know. It's just a rare thing, you know, and that's why jiu-jitsu is just so awesome, because you can, you know, it blends all those worlds together.
You had said something about going back to the Netherlands and just not having as good of jiu-jitsu there. I guess it wasn't as developed as it was in the States. Can you talk a little bit about, like, how did you keep your level of jiu-jitsu evolving, keep improving, and you know, finding places to learn? Obviously, with the internet not being what it is, still trying to improve your game, living in a different country, maybe where jiu-jitsu wasn't as developed.
Yeah. Well, there were some pockets of people spread around the country that were doing really good stuff, but there was nowhere near. There was only one gym in Amsterdam, but the instructor was a blue belt, just like me. So I would just go there, and we would have brawls, and it was fun. So I had some people to train with, and he was a really cool guy. He's a Hickson Black Belt now, actually, UNXIIBIYDPRMUCIH at Vos Gym. It's a kickboxing gym, and they had a very small MMA program, and that's why I trained. And I had some friends that I met there, and we started training at a wrestling gym where we could rent the mat space, and something would be like the Dutch equivalent of the YMCA, but it's just a community center that had a mat space. They would do yoga, and they would do judo, and would rent the mat there, and we would train there. And basically, I would just do the resistance drills that I learned from Mike, passing, but it was mostly passing and defending the guard drills, just to get some sort of guard going. And once I kind of understood guard, everything else evolved from that, and started doing some competitions. But it was rough, and I had my notebook with techniques that I'd learned. I'm pretty good visual memory, and I'm pretty good at organizing stuff in my mind. So I had flowcharts that I made, and I always made notes after training sessions to kind of keep my to know like where did I go wrong, what did I do right, and it was just a lot of studying and VHS tapes, and then later some burnt, ripped CDs, stolen DVDs from tracker sites. It wasn't even a tracker site; it was something else. I don't know, but I had some Mario Sperry Valetudo tapes on DVD that I just watched religiously, also for comedic value, because Mario Sperry was just hilarious, just making the most inappropriate jokes that you cannot repeat now because you get canceled. But it was awesome. But yeah, so I had tapes, I had my notebook, I had a bunch of training partners. Actually, one of my best training partners then, he recently actually died. It was quite tragic, but I trained with him for many years. Aaron Karels, rest in peace.
How did he pass?
He killed himself. Yeah. So that's another aspect of like mental health in jiu-jitsu. That's a huge thing. But I feel like nowadays it's also like it's more common to kind of open up on struggles. You have the Submit the Stigma program that I think is going pretty well in the States, or this kind of awareness of mental health problems. And that's something that, you know, at first you didn't really talk about your feelings in jiu-jitsu. No, it's like, no, you get smashed. But I think it's just what I was saying is like nowadays, because gyms become more like an extended family and you have people from all walks of life, it's a lot more safer to kind of open up. I've had many beautiful conversations with people after the mat. If you just choke the ever living life out of somebody, you just say like, well, I'm totally burned out at work, or my relationship's failing, whatever, because you've already went through the fire with people. And it's really nice to kind of use that also as a way to, you know, connect with people. And so it's something that I feel it's good that there's more people are more opening up about their struggles as well.
I've always found that like it's easy to talk, for at least for me, like to talk to the guys in the gym, whether it was wrestling or even jiu-jitsu, even from a pretty, like once I felt comfortable with the guys back in the day, I mean, I would be asking them for advice on stuff, right? Because like, man, my girlfriend and I got in a fight, like whatever, you know, that kind of stuff. And there's an interesting idea that an author shared, I think his last name is Reeves, I can't remember, but the book is called Of Boys and Men. And so one of the things that he brings up is the idea that like, you know, and he sort of brings this up, and it's worth bringing up that, you know, you can hold that like women have challenges and men have unique challenges as well. That like, it's not like saying that if to acknowledge the men's challenges, you can't acknowledge a woman's challenge. So, but he said there's a unique issue with men where, like, for instance, with suicide, mental health issues, like, cause it's like, if you look at the suicide stats, like men kill themselves. I mean, it's exponentially more than women. It's not even close. Yeah. And so he's like looking at different things. And one of the things that he mentions is that for like an issue of men's health is that we've lost a lot of the places that we would normally go to as men, and we would do an activity as we talked out whatever was going on, right? For instance, like, you know, if a woman goes to talk and they're having a big, deep conversation, they look at each other and like face to face, and they're like, really like, what's going on, right? It's this very intense one-on whatever thing, or like a group thing. Whereas dudes, a lot of times, like some of the most life-changing like advice I've gotten from people would be like, me and the guys would be bench pressing, and like what my old mentor Jim would, you know, he would lay a little piece of wisdom on me. I'm like, oh man, that stuck with me. Or, you know, back in the day would have been a couple guys working on their car, talking to each other, having a couple of beers. And, you know, now like I've had some pretty deep conversations shoulder to shoulder with one of the guys on the mats. Like, we're both tired, we just had a good roll, and we're sitting there talking. And then in that moment, like, we're just side talking. And so that's the term that he uses, like that men are, like, when we want to talk about deep stuff, a lot of times, sometimes we're best as side talkers, doing an activity or being involved in an activity.
And it's like if you don't make sure you don't arrange that for yourself in your life, you're really missing out. And but yeah, it is kind of like there used to be also a taboo about men not opening up about their feelings.
This is true.
I think that at least with my friends, my peers now, people are. I have a men's circle that I go to once a month, and with a bunch of dudes sit around, talk about stuff that's going on, and we're quite emo about it, but it's it's a good thing. It's like you don't want to get that stuff bottled up. But
well, right, and you also like you want to be able to talk amongst like male friends about what's going on.
Sure.
It's still something that like I would feel more comfortable talking out like some like whatever turmoil is going on to a certain degree, certain issues with one of my male friends than I would to come home and just be a blubbering mess to my wife. You know what I mean? Like it's not, I can talk about my wife about anything, but again, there's a certain thing where, I want to still be a strong partner for her. And so, but it is good to have a male group where if something comes up, you have someone to go to,
Sure.
and you can, get your thoughts together and then go from there,
But I think, but it's like, sometimes it's like, there's a bit of a taboo of like, when you're in deep mental shit, people don't want to reach out sometimes. And I've had people that have, sometimes I've had it with when I taught class and I saw somebody was not happy, and I felt like there's something off with this guy. But as a person, I like him, but I'm like, I see he's not comfortable, and I've always had kind of a feel for that. But sometimes people would just say like, can you walk with me for a little bit? And people will open up on all sorts of things. But it's also because you've had that space where you're doing something, you're doing an activity, but you're also really in tune with somebody's mental state and their physical being. This all tensed up, like who, and that is a beautiful thing. But there are spaces where men can, you can go fishing and whatever, you can do work on your car, you can go to the gym.
Sure.
But Jiu-Jitsu helps is that it's also a physical activity where you are problem solving, and you're doing a lot of stuff with your body, so you feel the tension already. If you roll with somebody who's not in a good state of mind, their body will feel different.
Sure.
And I think because Jiu-Jitsu, you've already been through that, so you already have an understanding of people, and that is why it's easy to open up to people, I think. But I'm speculative, but I found I've had really good, just really beautiful conversations with people about all sorts of things after a really brutal training session, and where you've noticed like, ooh, somebody's not, I don't feel well,
Well, so, I mean, like thinking about that, I mean, like think about the amount of trust that you give to someone when you're letting them put you in some of the most vulnerable positions. And it's so, I think you can build trust one way or the other, but I think there's a unique bond that people form when they've been this close to each other. And like you said, you get very in tune to someone's energy, the way their body feels when they're like something's off or they're in some sort of emotional state. You can feel it. And so I think, like you said, you get to you're a little bit more in tune with that person because of it. But I think the level of trust, I mean, like if you're going to dump your guts out a little bit, right, and sort of test the waters with someone, you probably don't feel like it's that big of a deal after this person just tried to choke you unconscious and vice versa. So it's like, all right, this is not that big of a deal. I was just, taking you to the brink of unconsciousness, and I'm just having a rough day with my girlfriend, wanted to chat with you about it, right? Like probably not that big of a deal.
Yeah, exactly. No, that's a beautiful thing indeed. Yeah.
I think expending a lot of that physical, like if people, especially men, may bottle things up and hold that tension. So I think once you have expended a lot of that physical energy, that physical tension, you're kind of more relaxed, you're in a more relaxed state. And I think it allows you to be less guarded, especially after you spend some time building trust, with your training partners and holding each other and choking each other and being in close proximity. And I think you let go of a lot of the barriers, almost flake off, and then you feel more open because there's something, because like Chewy said, you're kind of side talking. You just did this challenging thing and everybody's just kind of relaxing after a tough training session, trying to that's where just conversation comes out. And I think it's one of the best things, one of my favorite things about jiu-jitsu. And I think it's important. I think it's important for everybody to have that community.
Yeah. Definitely.
We just did, Chew and I just did a podcast the other day about like the deriving a deeper meaning from jiu-jitsu. And for you, training as long as you have 20 plus years, I mean, martial arts, probably what, close to 30, 40 years, something like that.
I kind of lost track. I think it's 25 years in jiu-jitsu.
How many stripes do you have now?
I got 3.
Okay.
I got 3.
Nice.
So yeah, but I
Yeah.
mean, like this means that you didn't die.
Yeah, no, I know. It's like that's so one of the little kids
Yeah.
once asked me if when I get a red belt, you know, and I told him, well, if I don't die by a certain year, then I might be able to, or you know, it was a black and red belt, the coral belt, or whatever it was, right? Like,
Yeah,
when do I get one of those cool belts? Like, if I don't die, I'll get it when I'm like 60 something or whatever. I get the black and red belt or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So, Daniel, so my question, you know, have you derived a deeper meaning from jiu-jitsu, or what does maybe jiu-jitsu mean to you possibly when you started and now? Like, what does it mean to you now? And then the last question is, how's it kind of helped you in life? Is there a way that jiu-jitsu's kind of impacted you in your life?
Yeah. What I derive from it is that it's that sense of belonging, I guess, and being good at something, and also finding that I'm really good at teaching that stuff. I kind of discovered pretty early on that being a competitor wasn't really what floated my boat. I got too much anxiety. Um, I had mixed results. And I figured, yeah, it's not really my jam. I get so anxious with competitions. I did a bunch, but it wasn't my jam. But I really love to teach, and I really love to teach. Oddly enough, competitor classes, and people did quite well doing that. But it's been something that I've really enjoyed, being really good at something that is a little bit niche and obscure, but now it's exploded. So that was cool. It was just a sense of accomplishment, I guess, or just being like, whatever goes wrong in my life, I know I can teach a class of jiu-jitsu and people are going to be really excited. You know, I can teach a seminar. You go on YouTube, there's a bunch of seminars of mine. Please check them out and let me know what you think. But so that sense of accomplishment is really nice, and it's kept me like super strong. I'm fit. I'm 45 years old, and I feel pretty good. Not a lot of injuries, so that's good. That's also because of yoga and because of strength training, and the communal aspect, and just being like establishing friendships that lasts super, that span across continents. I go to Globetrotters camps. I meet new people, cool new people all the time at those camps. I make friends for life, and I'm going to visit. I'm going to visit some of them in the States at the end of April, and so that the communal aspect is awesome. And what was the other question you had?
So, like, how's it helped you in your life? Like, what do
Oh
you feel
yeah.
like has helped you deal with anything challenging
Well,
or giving you some tools?
well, people like to say that you become really good at navigating disaster, I guess, but I'm not that good at that. It's been an outlet. It's helped me as an outlet. I've also noticed that I kind of took a step back away from jiu-jitsu for a little while. I started training less, and I thought that was also kind of a healthy thing to do, because I just wanted to learn something completely new, and I was getting a little bit jaded, in the sense that I would teach class, and I would teach class in the way that I enjoy it, and that would be it. And I wasn't really feeling it at a certain point. So I started doing some other sports. I started doing climbing, and then through climbing and through being a complete beginner in something again, I kind of like, I want to go teach a little bit more now. So I have a deep love for jiu-jitsu, but it's not as super important in my life as it used to be. But I think that changes. Your interests shift as you get older. And I have 2 kids. I have other things that I enjoy. Um, so at first I was a little bit of a monomanic. I was only obsessed about jiu-jitsu, and that was good. That was a nice thing to do, to get my ADHD up and running and get into hyper focus and learning this as fast as possible. And once you reach a certain level or certain skill set within the time that you have available to train, you're going to plateau. You're not going to get any better. So I think it's healthy for me to when I kind of took a step away from jiu-jitsu and focus on other things, make me a little bit more broader as a person. And so it's been a constant in my life. I still really enjoy it, and it's just something that is just part of your daily, or like your weekly routine, I guess.
Yeah. How did we'll talk about your camps and stuff coming up. How do you because I know you have some kids. I'm a relatively new father. How do you think
Congrats.
fatherhood? Yeah, thank you. How do you think fatherhood's changed you as a person?
Well, you know the feeling in jiu-jitsu where there's always a bigger fish and somebody's already ready to kick your ass.
Yeah.
Well, that's fatherhood essentially. Like your kids will always kick your ass. You know, you're not gonna. You always have that. It's
How do you
just
mean?
because they will always come first. So they will. You
Sure.
will. Yeah. Well, you will have to put all your nonsense there because they are the priority now, and that's a very healthy thing, I guess.
I think so.
Yeah, and yeah, it's been humbling. I have my daughter. My daughter is 12 years old, and my son is 8, and I both got them to do a little bit of jiu-jitsu, but I really did not want to push it.
Sure.
And at a certain point, my daughter said, "I just don't feel like it anymore." I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." I don't want to be that guy that says you have to do this because I know my daughter. She's not going to do anything that I'm going to tell her to do. She's going to go the exact opposite.
Yeah.
And my son did judo for a little bit, but he's like, I'd rather go to acting class. Fine,
Mhm.
you know. And I think that's also, yeah. Your kids don't necessarily have to like what you like, you know. And
That's right.
I was completely fanatical about jiu-jitsu, but I want them to be extremely fanatical about something else. You know, find your own passion and go for it, and you know, take names and you know, do what you want. But for me, I could care less. I just want them to be happy, you know. And
I think it's a
sometimes
healthy perspective.
yeah. Sometimes you become like, well, in Holland we call them football fathers,
Okay.
football dads that want their
Yeah.
son to be the absolute OG king of the football field, and they invest all their mental capacities into getting their son or daughter to be this person. And I think that's very sad. You know?
Yeah.
I think in the US we call it dance moms.
Dance moms, or
Dance
we used to
mom.
call it like baseball dads, like because the dad would like get their kid involved in it, and like if your kid's not in it, and no amount of forcing them, I would, maybe except for some strange like outliers, no amount of forcing your kid, forcing another human being is going to give them passion and want to continue for the rest of their life to, make some career out of it. Right. Like it's like trying to get your kids to eat food they don't want to eat. Right. Like, good luck, like if they don't want to eat it, they don't want to eat it.
Yeah. My parents kind of actively discouraged me to do martial arts. My mom thought you're just going to be a thug if you do martial arts. So I wasn't allowed to train. I could only train judo because she thought that was a friendly art. But little did she know that my judo instructor was a vicious, sadistic, pressure passing monster. And so yeah. But anyway, I went the opposite way. So I think my kids are going to do the same thing. If I try to push them to do something they don't want to do, they're going to go just the other way.
Yeah, just leave the door open if they want to.
Sure. Sometimes they say like, "Can we wrestle?" Yeah, like, of course we can wrestle.
That's
it. So then they wrestle with me, and I flip them some stuff, like I flip them over, and they'll be. That's enough. That's enough.
Yeah.
I would say as a parent, I have a 9 and 7-year-old, and I think your kids, and Chewy, I think you'll find this out. I think your kids constantly challenge you and force you to evolve, because you'll realize that like maybe the things that you did when they were younger don't work, and you have to kind of continue to evolve and I don't know, like you can't be the same parent, and you don't want to be the same parent you were when they were newborns to, I'm a completely different parent. I feel like,
they're changing constantly.
Exactly.
So you have to adjust.
Evolve.
And I thought about this the other day when I made that post, because I'm like Luca just started like talking a bunch.
Sure.
And so now he's like starting to like, he's challenging me now, but he's challenging me in different ways.
Yep.
Right. Cause it's like, okay, now we're doing different things. So now it's like what worked on him just like a few months ago isn't working. It's not having the same effect. So now it's like, I've got to adjust the plan. And I'm like, I feel like I'm rolling with someone in their defense. It's like, oh, they just defended my first attempt.
Sure.
Now I've got to like change something else off because, what used to work's no longer working. And now I've got a problem solve and figure it out.
They're evolving, getting better. It's like you're that white belt now has a couple stripes. Now they can do a thing or two.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just
Yeah, you have to use mental jujitsu a lot more, I guess.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
like you can't brute force anything
Right.
to happen. You have to get like these are the options,
Yeah.
and you know, choose wisely, young Jedi. You know, it's like
That's
you
true.
orchestrate, but you can't brute force your way through life. I think if there's one lesson that you can learn from jujitsu is that will probably never work, or at the long run, it won't work. Brute
Sure.
forcing your way into things. So yeah, you have to kind of like, okay, this is something I can deal with, but this is something I can manipulate to my advantage, I guess.
Sure.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yeah, I mean, because you could obviously brute force something with your kids, but are you going to like the effects of the aftermath? Are your
No.
kids going to love you, right? Like you said, short term, yeah, maybe you get the desired outcome you want, but long term, is it the best decision?
Well,
Probably not.
they're going to be
Yeah.
when they're able to rebel, they will, right? At
Yeah.
a young age, they can't rebel. They don't have the, you know, the money or they can't just the know-how, but when they get a little older, they start to rebel. And when they're
Yeah, yeah.
18, they're out of there.
Yeah.
So,
No, there's something
which,
that I want to
you know, you
avoid.
don't want that. Like you want to have a good relationship with your, I want to have a good relationship with my kids. I think it'd be really important for them to see me in a positive light. Like, but you know, it's always it's like a back and forth. It's
Sure.
always a challenge, and it's like you gotta change with the as they get older because they have more
Sure.
tools for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
Daniel, I wanted to ask you about where can people check out some of your seminars, and I'll put a link in the show notes. It's
Oh,
just
that's
on
awesome.
YouTube, or where can people kind of see what you're up to as well?
Yeah, no, like there's a bunch of yeah, I'm on Instagram, obviously. They can follow me there.
Okay.
I have I've been involved with BJJ Globetrotters since its inception. I've been doing these camps, and there is some footage of me teaching there. There's I think there's now 3 pretty well produced videos on BJJ Globetrotters or Globetrotters in action. And that's me teaching seminars. There's two no-gi seminars and a gi seminar. And I've on my own YouTube page, I think my handle, I forgot my own handle, but if you Google my name and Jiu-Jitsu, Daniel Bertina Jiu-Jitsu, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you'll find it. There's some stuff that I kind of edited down. But the content is the production value is kind of crap, but the content is good. So yeah, and I'm gonna go to teach a seminar at in Inverted Gear Academy at the end of April.
Okay.
So people.
What's the date on that? April what?
We haven't figured out when I'm gonna do the seminar yet, but I'm gonna go from I think it's from the 29th up Saturday the 29th up until the next Saturday. I'll be
Okay.
for 1 week.
Cool.
I'll be there. But Inverted Gear, they've been like buddies of mine through Globetrotters for a long time, and they're gonna have me over. So that's
Very
gonna
cool.
be
Yeah,
awesome.
Nelson Hill are
Yeah.
great people.
We've
Yeah,
talked to him
they're-
before on the podcast too.
Yeah, I know he's awesome. We spent we spent a couple of weeks together hanging out, and they're good folks. And yeah, my bro Brad Wolfson in New Haven, Connecticut, from Soulcraft BJJ. I'm gonna go visit him too, and maybe teach there as well. So it's gonna be a week of jiu-jitsu. I'll probably break myself. I'm not sure if I can handle so much, because everybody on the East Coast is probably wrestlers and stuff. So like, oh my God, I'm gonna get crushed. And I have this kind of reputation for being like this skinny, lanky guy who's got like sick pressure passing.
Yeah.
But I don't know if I can still I can handle the the Pennsylvania wrestlers. That's some real pressure though.
That is. But you know, I mean, that said, most of the gyms are still not like Pennsylvania wrestlers, right? Like you might have some squeezing in there somewhere, but it probably won't be the majority, luckily.
Yeah. No.
Well, awesome, brother.
Yeah, man.
So we'll hopefully you're in the States, you enjoy your time here, and Chewy, you got anything, man?
No, I mean, it was good just chatting with you for a bit.
Yeah.
I'll follow back up with you if I'm able to make it out there for that week you're there. I will.
Sure.
But if I ever find myself in Europe for some strange reason, I'll make sure to get in touch with you.
No, sure. Yeah. Our gym is located in Amsterdam. I don't live there in the city anymore. I moved out 10 years ago because no human being can live in Amsterdam anymore. It's too expensive.
Okay.
But the gym is in Amsterdam. So anybody who's passing through, send me a message on Instagram or whatever, and we always love to have visitors because we're very visitor friendly. So it's always
What's the name of the gym?
It's Carlson Gracie Amsterdam.
Got it.
Yeah, I'm with the Carlson School. My instructor is the head honcho, but I'm one of the instructors that runs around and sometimes teaches a class here and there. So yeah,
very cool, dude. You were definitely influential to me, like as a young
Awesome.
wrestler getting into jiu-jitsu, and
awesome.
So it was fun chatting with you again.
No, I really appreciated your energy always in the gym. It was awesome, and we had some good chats, man. Because I didn't have a driver's license, and you would drive me to the gym often. So we had good chats, good rolls. I've always have a place in my heart for Chewy, man. Chewy's the salt of the earth.
Appreciate it, buddy. All right, guys. So hopefully you enjoyed that podcast with my buddy Daniel.
He's fun. He's fun to talk to. Interesting, like, just his trajectory, his life kind of just seems like he goes back and forth, kind of traveled a lot as a young guy. He had a lot of life experience.
It was like he would be with us for 3 months, leave, come back for 3 months. Yeah. Because he was all in with that woman at one point,
That's cool,
but didn't work out. I remember it was a bummer seeing him have to leave because I was like, man, that was my bro. That was like my best training partner that I had. And, like we said, like at the time I was driving him to the gym.
Sure.
I would go, I remember the schedule. I would lift weights at the gym that I was going to. He lived right down the street from the gym. So I would drive and go pick him up. And I'd drink some protein or something on the way. And then we would just talk and have these conversations. We'd go train. I'd take him back home. And then I was on my way, you know what I mean? And, it's just interesting thinking about that stuff. Cause it's back then it seemed like, such a long time. It was like, oh man, we were training so much.
Yeah.
Dude, it was like 2 years.
Yeah.
I knew him for 2 years, but like in my mind, he takes up because it was at the beginning. He took up a disproportionate amount of like my thought in that early phases. He was like one of the crucial figures there. Cause it's one thing to have your coach and stuff like that. It's another thing to have a guy who's like right there with you where you guys are even. And you're sharpening each other. Cause it's like, if your coach is going with you, it's one thing, but your coach can shut you down if you're at that newer stage at any point.
Yeah.
It's another thing to be going 100% with someone and you guys are both getting the better of each other every night off and on.
That's cool.
And so having someone like that, if you ever have those training partners, those battle buddies, that's one of my, like one of the things I talk about, like, and sometimes it's in one of my books I'm going to put out soon. It's like one of the secrets is finding a good battle bro.
Yeah.
Right. Finding someone who you develop a good relationship with, you feel comfortable with, you feel safe with, right? Because safety is a big deal for us in training, right? We got to feel like we're in vulnerable spots. We have to feel like we're cool. And then finding that person and then like building that relationship, right? So it could be something obviously simple as like, hey, man, I need a ride to the gym. I got you. Because you have time to talk, you're developing that relationship anyway. And then you're, training on the mats and you're getting closer. I know sometimes people try to keep a distance to, I heard a guy sent me a message the other day. He said he was trying to keep a distance from all the guys in his gym. He doesn't want to get too close to people.
Why is that?
I don't know. He just says he wants to keep a distance. I shot him a message to ask kind of like why. Because for me, it's like, it's the exact opposite. I want to be closer. I'm not trying to get close to the point where like, I'm coming over your house for breakfast every Sunday, but like, I want there to be a strong bond where you feel close, you feel comfortable. And again, I think as humans, one of the things we're kind of wired to is to seek out bonding with one another, right? But also from a training standpoint, like, I mean, if you get a good training partner that's right around the same skill level and you guys have a genuine like for one another, like, dude, that's a secret. Because then you guys can go as hard as possible, but you're taking care of each other too.
Yeah.
And then that's a great tool for training. And so finding a good like battle bro or battle sister, like just one or two of them, big deal. I've always had those throughout the years, and it's been like a secret, if you will, like, because I had one with Chris. We lived together, and then it was Amsterdam, and then it was other guys that came along the way. So important idea. That said, thank you guys for being here. Hopefully you enjoyed the podcast. Hope you feel like you got something from it or just enjoyed us talking about the old days, just out of the 1900s. Big thanks to our sponsors, Athletic. If you guys want to check them out, again, I talked about it at the beginning of the podcast. They're THC and CBD, or THC and cannabinoid blends. And again, they are like, you're not going to take them and be like high as a kite and turn into a couch potato, but they do help support this sort of relaxed feeling that we all like, right? And then you can use that for focused training, work, just chilling out at the end of the day. And they have several different products. They have a rebound one, which is more for recovery, chilling out at the end of the night. They have a flow one, which is again, to put you in more of a flow, relaxed state, letting that brain go, if you will. And then they have one they call it their power blend, which is there to support you during physical exercise. And so again, you can check out any of their products at their website at Athletic, ATHLETHC.com. It's athletic with THC. And if you guys find something you like, if you want to try out one of the products, you can use the promo code Chewjitsu for 10 or Chewjitsu 10, excuse me, for 10% off the order. Again, I like them. And so happy to bring them on as a sponsor. Hopefully you guys try them out and enjoy them as well. Big thanks to Epic Roll for sponsoring the podcast. If you guys want to check out their website, go to epicrollbjj.com. Lots of great gear and apparel, good quality stuff. I like it. The promo code is Chewjitsu 20 for 20% off the order. And again, I'm getting my new rash guards made, the new 2025 Jiu-Jitsu rash guards made, and it's through Epic Roll. And again, I do it because I really like the rash guards and their shorts. They're super comfortable. So I have a bunch of gear coming out. If you guys would like to pre-order so that we make sure we have your size, whether you're a woman, men, whatever, we got it. Go to their website or go to my website at chewjitsu.net or any of my emails or Instagram, whatever, you will see it somewhere. Just make sure you do so before April 11th, because that's when I'm closing off the pre-order, because I want to get the stuff ordered, make sure I have everybody's sizes, and that's that. So check it out. Also, thanks to Charlotte's Web for supporting the podcast. Again, Charlotte's Web is one of the premier CBD companies that are out there. They also have a new line of products that use functional mushrooms to help support you in whatever you're doing. So they have things like the reishi gummy, which comes along with ashwagandha root, which can be helpful for managing stress and sort of helping, again, to chill you out a little bit, but not in the sense of zonking you out, like say a pharmaceutical drug, but basically helping your body to support it with supplements to manage stress, to deal with that. And then also things like lion's mane to help support focus. And they have a lot of other new products that are out. So if you guys, I know a lot of you send me messages. There was one guy the other day, Taylor, I think it was, who sent me a message and said, let me bring up his post here. Or his message to me, because he sent me a message about the products he was using because he trains really hard. And basically says he's been using them for several years after listening to the podcast, and they've helped him out a bunch. And so again, if you guys find anything that you like on there on the Charlotte's Web's webpage at charlottesweb.com, use the promo code Chewjitsu30 if they save 30% off the order. Also, if you guys would like to support the podcast directly, you can do so by going to our Patreon, patreon.com/the Chewjitsu podcast. When you sign up, we'll give you some perks, give you some things and some exclusive content that you have access to that nobody else does. And in return, you guys pay a pittance, a very cheap nominal fee that helps support the podcast. And those of you guys that do it every month, we really appreciate you. There's a bunch of perks when you get in. There's a bunch of different content you get into, like warm-up routines and things of that nature, seminars that have been recorded, and behind-the-scenes podcasts that we haven't released anywhere. Patreon.com/the Chewjitsu podcast is the website if you are interested. If you guys would like to get my daily email, where I send out a message every day going into whatever I think might be fun or useful to you as a grappler, and you can go to my website at chewjitsu.net/join. When you join up, you'll get the email. You'll also get instant access to an ebook and a video that goes into 12 different strategies for training in an open mat. So again, one of the most important things we talked about on the podcast just a little bit ago is about having very clear focuses. Now your coach can make that focus for you, right, through training and live drills and things like that. But if you don't have a coach that does that, or even everybody's got an open mat, if you want to crack open and really get more from those experiences, you need to be more focused. And so the ebook gives you 12 different strategies that anybody from white belt to black belt can implement to get more focus from your training. And it helps out a lot. And so if you guys want to check it, look at the website, chewjitsu.net/join up, and you can get access to it. Also, guys, just throwing this out there because Eugene is it's like something he's offering now. If you guys are broken, or you're trying to prevent from becoming broken, or if you would like to, as I have over the years, had tight muscles and things like that, and restrictions on doing certain movements, and you never could figure out why, then check out Eugene. Eugene is a doctor of physical therapy. He's also a black belt in jiu-jitsu. He's also been fixing me for about 15 years, helping me after surgeries and also how to prevent them, and getting better functional movement out of my body. Again, if you guys want to check him out, go to his Instagram, his email, all of his stuff. It's all jiu-jitsu. It's all the jiu-jitsu. Is it
the jiu-jitsu therapist?
The jiu-jitsu therapist. You can check him out. He's got all that stuff. Again, check him out for his coaching. How does your coaching work? How's the process?
Yeah. So we start with a 15-minute call just to kind of make sure it's something that I feel like we're a right fit, that we can work together and I think could be beneficial. And then I do an onboarding essentially a 1 hour call. We do a video call and I take you through some movements and we kind of chat back and forth and kind of figure out what the problem areas are, what your focus areas are. Essentially, some people don't really have a problem area. They just want to kind of go through like a full assessment and see what's going on, see what I find. And then we make a programming for the month that we kind of check in. I use an app that way I can kind of gauge your progress and see where you're, compliance and things like that. And we just kind of go back and forth and modify and adjust and get it to kind of what works for you.
Nice. So guys, if you want to check him out, check out The Jiu-Jitsu Therapist on Instagram, thejujitsutherapist@gmail.com, or his website, thejujitsutherapist.com. And you guys can get details on his coaching. If that's something you want to work on, if having someone keep you accountable to fix your body is something that you'd like, check it out. And otherwise, guys, appreciate you for being here. Thank you so much as always. And we'll talk to you next week.